Hello everybody and welcome back to my channel, and we've got quite a few books to review. And first of all, we're going to wrap up the Book Buddy-a-thon, and first one I did for fun. I chose this one by Jayne Campbell, and this is a more things with things people say in bookshops, and this is a fun little read. I've got book one, and this is the next one, along with other little ditties, all funny things that she's collected from when she worked as a bookseller. So that's fulfilled that criteria. And then Adventure, My Owl and the Pussycat Went to Sea, Edward Lear. And yeah, it was just fun reading through that again, looking at the illustrations. It always makes me smile. I just love that. Love that one. Buddy Read, the book that, and this is A Year of Marvellous Ways by Sarah Winman. Now this is probably going to be somewhat controversial. I've got all sorts of writings and scribblings as I'm going along. And I've been buddy reading this with my lovely friend Kerry Ann from Woman vs. Books. I struggled and got over halfway and DNF'd it, I'm afraid. And that's probably somewhat controversial because I know so many people have really loved this, Sarah Winman's work. I know she did When God Was a Rabbit. I've also got that, not read that. There's no doubt in my mind, you know, there's no doubt that she's a very accomplished writer. Very lyrical, her prose is beautiful, lovely descriptions. But for me, in the format of this book just didn't work. We've got Marvellous Ways, who is an old lady that lives by the sea in this bit of an old shack, and she's grieving the loss of a lost love who, you know, never sort of, he kept coming and going, never really totally committed to her. And this is set in just after the finish of the Second World War, and she comes across a young man who has obviously got problems, got a lot of stress, got a lot of what we now call post-traumatic stress from being in the war, and he's called Francis Drake, and he comes upon her shack, and it's the sort of story of the two of them. Now, the first chapter, you just can't make head nor tail of the first chapter. I think they'd have been better off not having it in. We've got some beautiful writing, talking about Marvellous Ways. We're introduced to her, you know, obviously why she's left alone by this lover that she's never really got over the loss of, and quite beautiful lyrical writing. Then we get a change of tone, which is fine because we're then talking about a different character, and it's then we're talking about him coming back from the war, coming back to London, and how everything's changed from the war, and how he's got to now build up a new life. And he meets somebody that he knew from when he was a boy, who I think had a bit of a crush on, and she's sort of involved a few days in his life, and he ends up meeting, should I say, Marvellous Ways. And I was just disappointed in it. It was very disjointed, I felt. Yes, there were plot lines running through it. And it's supposed to be looking at loss and grief and how they helped each other overcome loss and grief. There's quite a lot, distinct magical realism in it, really. She says that her mum was a mermaid, and he just doesn't fit in with the book. It's as if it's as if it doesn't know what it wants to be, in my opinion. You know, we've got this beautiful written prose, which is very literary. We've then got typical World War II piece of fiction. We've got magical realism being thrown in here over there, and we've got a bit of something else, and it just didn't flow for me. And I know everybody, not everybody, but many people have raved about it on BookTube, and I'm not disputing there's some beautiful writing in it, but to me it doesn't work as it just didn't work as a cohesive whole. It didn't flow. It was just all sections of what's going on with the two of them, a mishmash of writing styles, and it just felt too disjointed. So in the end I did DNF it, sorry, for all those that love it. So I just think probably her writing style's just not for me. It's not that I don't like magical realism. I've really enjoyed some wonderful books. I mean, especially like Kirsty Logan and her stuff's magical realism. Yeah, just couldn't get on with it. And then the other one, which was the one about friends, I picked this up because this has had quite a lot of hype lately, and this is by Sally Rooney. Now it's a literary piece of fiction, and it's sort of got so many well, not so many, but so much praise, and basically it's looking at relationships, and there's 4 friends, there's a married couple, and then there's 2 girls that have been at university, and they all end up in each, you know, in each other's circle of friends, and it's how their relationships interweave, and the modern look, very modern look at relationships. And yeah, I quite agree that this is a debut by Sally Rooney, and it is nicely written, you know, some of the descriptions, and she's certainly got a very good eye for observing how humans interact, how friendship and friends and different people in different relationships interact. However, I didn't think there was anything special about this book, to be fair. It's been raved about. It didn't feel much better than a nice, comfortable beach read chick lit, unfortunately. I mean, they'd put here, I love this novel, a contemporary love story so powerful, graceful and honest, it left me reeling. Well, no, I think, I just don't personally agree with that. That was Luke Kennard, author of The Transition. This formidably assured debut offers a dry, humoured portrait of the power play in romantic relationships. Well, it did make me laugh once, I'm sorry. Oh dear me. What else have they put on here? You know, and it goes on and it goes on, and I feel that's lovely for her. You know, it's a debut, addictive, funny, truthful first novel about love and literature. I didn't find it addictive. I plodded my way through it. I didn't DNF it, but it certainly wasn't addictive. It was just a nice, easy read. I gave it, for enjoyment, for my personal enjoyment, I'd only give it 2.5. But it's worth 3 stars because it is well written. And I think that Sally Rooney's got a lot of good promise. I think, you know, we're going to hear many great things from her, sorry. She's already won the Sunday Times Young Writer of the Year. So, I mean, what do I know? I just read them, you know, obviously. I don't know anything. But that's just my personal opinion. I found it very mundane. I found that it wasn't anything special. So, sorry, that's my opinion. So, next, as you know, we went to the Books of the Beach, which is the literary festival that we had in Scarborough here last weekend. We had a really exciting time. So my fangirl moment carried on throughout the weekend and met some amazing people. Now, the first night we went to see, I'm just checking their names because I wasn't really aware. Wasn't really aware of these two authors, and I suppose I should be. But we went to see Dame Denise Mina and Saul David. Now, they're both crime writers. Denise Mina, she has written loads and loads of books. She very much writes crime thrillers, very interested in basing them on true crime. She's a fascinating lady to listen to, and she was discussing her book The Long Drop. I'll leave the details down below. This is a standalone psychological thriller, and it's based on a true crime that happened in 1950 in Glasgow, the Peter Manuel crime. And those of you that maybe lived around Glasgow back in that time may well have heard about it. It was a great big trial. I believe it was the first Scottish trial to be televised. So there was a big thing about it. And it really sounds an interesting book, an interesting case. She'd done years and years of fascinating research. Very, very talented writer, but I've not heard of her. And Saul David, so spelt S-A-U-L, he's a historian. He has written many non-fiction historical works, and he's brought out a series featuring George Hart, and his latest one is called The Prince and the Whitechapel Murders, and this is number 3 in the series. I think the first one is Zulu, and can't think of what the second one is. And he's a very interesting person to listen to. His knowledge, historical knowledge, was really spot on. And I think that his work of fiction, not read any, but I like historical fiction where we get correct historical facts in there, where, you know, there's enough research done so that the times, the places, the people are accurate. And you're more than definitely going to get that with this guy, because he's written so many, you know, non-fiction pieces. Anyway, the book The Prince and the Whitechapel Murders is Hart 3, and George Hart has been asked to come and actually look after a member of the royal family, and this is oh crikey, not Bertie, the other one,
Eddie,
thank you David, Eddie. So that is known as Eddie amongst his family, but this is Edward, and he's sort of known to be a bit of a lad. He's a bit of a loose cannon actually, and he's known to go to some quite some shady places to meet other gay men, because back in those days, you know, it was illegal, and there were not many nice places where, you know, people used to meet. There was also a suspicion that he actually was Jack the Ripper, was Prince Edward. And so George Hart's been tasked with looking after, keeping an eye on him and seeing what he's up to, and making sure that there isn't a great big scandal going on. And it goes from there. It sounds a really interesting book. I shall actually read it myself. I didn't actually get that because I bought loads of other things when we were there, but I think both of those, so that's The Long Drop by Denise Mina and The Prince and the Whitechapel Murders by Saul David. Then the next day we went to see Jeremy Vine. And this is the book that he's written. So this is a piece of non-fiction. It's called What I Learnt. And much of this is musings from all the people that ring into his BBC radio show. And obviously it's live. They've got live topics on every day. And they don't really know who's going to ring up and what they're going to say. And oh, it was brilliant. I mean, I like Jeremy Vine. He's also the host of the television show The Eggheads, and his brother is a well-known comedian in the UK, Tim Vine, and he's funny. And actually, Jeremy's really funny. He just came out with so many funny stories and interacted with the audience. It was great. We had a fantastic afternoon. So that's going to be something. I think I'll probably read that when we get to non-fiction November. And also for everyone that watches Strictly Come Dancing, the British version, Jeremy was the celebrity partnered with Karen Clifford last year. Clifton, not Clifford. Karen Clifton. You know, Kevin from Grimsby, Clifton. So we had a wonderful time meeting him. So look up his book. It should be a very interesting piece of work. He's a very well respected journalist, very well respected political journalist as well. And then we saw Joanne Harris of Chocolat fame. So this is my own battered copy. Now, she has a band called the Storytime Band. So go and look that up. Hashtag Storytime Band. She has got a beautiful voice and she's a very accomplished musician. I was quite surprised to see that, you know, she's a very accomplished musician, not just such a fantastic author. And she plays the flute. And she's got very much, the band have very much got a folk feel, you know, folk singing, folk musical feel, vibe about them. And they were just amazing, because what she's done is she's written short stories that she reads out loud, and she's got a beautiful voice for narrating. I asked her if she thought about going and doing audiobooks, which was something that she was thinking of. And then the band set music that in the background that goes with these short stories that she was reading them out. And then there were songs and music that were composed around the subject matter. So for example, she'd written a short story about bees, and then when she finished that story, then there'd been a song written about bees in which they all played. She played the flute and the whole band played and sang. And I'm probably not making it come across very well, but it was beautiful. And it was something different from just going and listening to people talk about their books. They have got a CD coming out soon. She said keep an eye on her website, so I'll leave that down below. It's Joanne not underscore either, harris.co.uk, and look up the Storytime Band. It really was beautiful. There's quite a lot of magical realism themes running through, I think, her new work. I know she does write as Joanne E. Harris, I believe, when she's doing like science fiction, mystical, that sort of thing. And these short stories are very much of that feel. And they were wonderful, and she's a really lovely lady. She signed, I took 3 of my books. I've got more than that, but I took 3 of my books. And she signed my very old battered copy of Chocolat. So to Catherine, bon appetit. Joanne Harris. So, thrilled to bits with that. And then the final person that we went to see was Ruth Jones. And she's got this new book out. It's her debut novel, Never Greener. And for those of you who don't know Ruth Jones, she is an actress and she's a very accomplished script writer. And she wrote just one of my favourite series of all time, Gavin and Stacey. For those of you that don't live in the UK, I don't know if you can get hold of it, if it's been shown. I'm sure it's been shown over in the States, because I think James Corden, who co-wrote it with her, I think he lives in the States now. So go and look up on YouTube, Gavin and Stacey. They're just hilarious. She co-wrote it with James Corden, and she played Ness, the wacky Ness. And she was lovely. She was really interesting to talk to. And this, it came from an idea where she'd written a few ideas down, didn't know whether she'd use it as a script at some stage, and nothing really came of it. And then suddenly she decided that she would put it into a piece of fiction. And it's about relationships, it's about friendships, it's about thinking that the grass is greener on the other side of the fence. You know, we've got that saying, you know, and that's why I think it's called Never Greener. Sometimes we get to find out. And Jojo Moyes has put "I felt for every character unputterdownable" and kept me gripped from the beginning, Jane Fallon. And it says, the past has a habit of tracking us down and tripping us up. When Kate was 22, she had an intense and passionate affair with a married man, Callum, which ended in heartbreak. Kate thought she'd never get over it. 17 years later, life has moved on. Kate, now a successful actress, is living in London, married to Matt and mother to little Tahula. And meanwhile, Callum and his wife Belinda are happy together, living in Edinburgh and watching their kids grow up. The past, it would seem, is well and truly behind them all. But when Kate meets Callum again, and they are faced with a choice, to walk away from each other or to risk finding out what might have been. Second chances are a rare gift in life, but that doesn't mean they should always be taken. So if, oh, there's a great picture over there, a really nice photograph of Ruth Jones there, so you'll probably recognise her from there. She's a fantastic actress as well as a script writer. I'm really looking forward to that. If it's anything like her script writing, it'll be a fantastic read. So that is the wrap up from Books by the Beach. Anything else I've got to tell you about before we get to the announcement for the books, the giveaway? I finished Jane Green, Falling. This is lovely. This is a 3.5 star for me. This is a great love story. Nice easy read. The comfortable, really comfortable reads. And Jane Green, very accomplished author, so I've enjoyed that. And also I started buddy reading Anne of Green Gables, a good old classic by L.M. Montgomery, with my good friend Cheryl from CR Flames fan. And L.M. Montgomery was a Canadian author, so quite apt, but I know this isn't going to go down very well, but I'm sorry, I had to DNF it. I was so excited and it started off well, but Anne absolutely wears you out. She wore me out. She never shuts up. I really do not like child narrators that talk about things that aren't age appropriate. It's just one of my pet hates. It really drives me mad. I'll just give you a bit of an example here from this to see how she wears you out. So, I'm pretty hungry this morning, she announced as she slipped into the chair Marilla placed for her. The world doesn't seem such a howling wilderness as it did last night. I'm so glad it's a sunshiny morning, but I like rainy mornings as well. Real well too. All sorts of mornings are interesting, don't you think? You don't know what's going to happen through the day and there's so much scope for imagination. But I'm glad it's not rainy today because it's easier to be cheerful and bear up under affliction on a sunny day. I feel that I have a good deal to bear up under. It's all very well to read about sorrows and imagine yourself living through them heroically, but it's not so nice when you really come and and howl and so forth. And then Marilla says, oh, for pity's sake, hold your tongue. And I'm thinking, yes, please, hold your tongue, for goodness sake. So I'm sorry, I couldn't bear it. I'm exhausted with it, so I'll put that down for now. So finally, I'm trying to think where I've put the prize. It's here. I knew I'd got it here somewhere. So if you recall, going back to March Mystery Madness, I had a giveaway. And it was Wallace of the Secret Service. There's 3 books there. Wallace at Bay, Wallace Intervenes and Chronicles of the Secret Service. And the winner of this is Trish Polkingholme. And if you could get in touch with me, please. What I did is everybody that had met all the criteria and commented all the March Mystery Madness it was chosen at random, and Trish, you've won the box. So if you can send me the details down below, you can send me an email with your address, please, and those books will be parcelled up and sent off to you. I'm sure you live in the States or in Canada. I'm sure you live in one of those 2 places, so goodness knows how long it'll take to get to you if it is Canada, because I know they take forever when I send books to Cheryl. So I think that's it. I know there's been quite a lot to fit in there, but I wasn't up to doing a video last week. So see you again next time. Bye.